Alright, what is up, chess people? This is Zach Robertson with ZR Chess again, and today we're going to finish up our journey on the Queen's Gambit episode 4, which we've been working through for the past couple weeks. We did a video on the first 3. This will be part 3, and I believe the final part that we're going to do, going through the games in the 4th episode. First one here, we've got Elizabeth Harmon versus Georgie Griev. Alright, so this is the one, and be aware there might be some spoilers here. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly suggest you go check it out and then come back to this video. That way you will have a better understanding of what we're talking about, and the show is just incredible, so you're going to want to see it anyway. Now, this is the one where she plays the Russian kid who's, maybe a teenager, and she's playing him, and if you remember, she by the end of it, she says, "You're the best I've ever played," and he says, "Until you play Borgov," and it's interesting because he starts off playing really well against her, and she kind of loses it, and she is concentrating so hard on it, and yet she's still making she still can't get through the defense. And she remembers that her mother said she's an intuitive chess player, and from that she realized what she needed to do. And that's why you see her, if you realize or don't realize what she's doing, she walks away from the table and she looks back every time it's her move. So she walks away from the table and she's just standing there as he's playing his move. He plays his move, she comes back and she plays her move right away and then goes back. And what she's doing there, she's trying to play on her strengths. As her mother says, she's an intuitive chess player. And what she's doing is trying not to think too hard about it, because she's got the innate intuitive skill. So instead of thinking hard about what he could play and then he plays and then she's thinking about moves, what she's trying to do is just come up with it immediately and go off her instincts. So when she comes back to the table from standing over there after it's her turn, she looks at the board, and she goes by intuition and plays what she thinks is right. And I can't say I agree with that or that it's beneficial for anybody to do that, but it makes for a good story, and it's cool to the inner workings of the character Beth Harmon and how she plays, and it's just a very cool scene and a very cool game that Beth plays. Once again, I don't think that's accurate or what you should do. Definitely not. Make sure you're looking at the chessboard. Think about what you play before you play it, but very cool to watch her play that way. So let's go ahead and start off. Once again, this is based off a real game played from the past by Daniel Stellwagen. I'm probably screwing up these names really bad. And Dmitry Jakovenko. So she goes ahead and plays a king's pawn opening, go into a Sicilian, and all this is pretty standard. And we're in a Scheveningen. And so the Scheveningen is just another form of the Sicilian. Instead of the dragon, accelerated dragon, hyper-accelerated dragon, or the Najdorf, all this stuff. So the Scheveningen is this move right here. The dragon would be this, the Najdorf would be this, and each of them have a different motive and why it's played. This one mainly is to have a good base in the center, looking to push one of these up, and it's good. Black has a great gameplay in this way with the Scheveningen, and there's nothing wrong with it. Everyone's got their preference and what they think is better. So they go into opening like this. Now Beth plays this pawn up here, which is a normal move for white during this. It's interesting, though, because you don't see a lot of people moving their f-pawn, especially if they're looking to castle kingside, which gives us a little bit of insight to what she's going to do. She does castle queenside because it opens up this diagonal to your king, and it's a little bit dangerous, especially if this bishop gets traded off later, which it does. So if you're going to play this here, it might be a good idea to at least think about castling queenside. Otherwise, I would just recommend not playing this. If you're going to castle kingside, if you're planning on doing that, then I would keep this pawn here and keep the trio of defenders ready to defend your king. So she plays that, pawn comes up, and it's attacking. So it's an interesting dilemma here. If you take with the pawn, then pawn takes back, and you have to move your knight. and then it could end up in a queen trade. It depends if you want that to happen. So looking ahead in a position like this, it's not so easy to know whether you should take this or not. Do you want to play without queens on the board? Do you want to exchange queens? If you're not good at playing with exchanged queens, might not be a great idea. So if Beth would have takes, knight has to move out of the way so it doesn't get killed. So knight moves, and then the exchange of queens happens, and now you can't castle queenside anymore. You can't, so you're gonna have to castle kingside with this pawn missing here, and it's gonna be a little more difficult. It still doesn't look bad. White has an open d5 for the rook. It looks very good for white, but it's something to think about and plan for whether or not you actually want that to happen. So instead of taking with the pawn, Beth moves her knight back to f3, where that pawn was. Not a bad place for the knight, definitely. It's eyeing down this and this position where you can jump into action here. It's, not bad at all. So the knight comes down, attacking this bishop. Now this bishop definitely needs to be defended or something. If the knight would take this and be right here in the middle of white's stuff, that's going to be really rough for white to defend, especially if he gets something in to defend it even more, the bishop looking in. So definitely don't want that to happen, so the queen comes up and defends it. Also, the queen moving up allows for white to castle. He goes ahead and exchanges again, and the bishop comes out looking to castle kingside, and we castle queenside. And we've got a semi-open file for our rook, for Beth's rook, and it looks really good for her position. Black doesn't look all that developed. He's got a closed game. White has more space and more open. So right now, I don't know about you, but I would definitely want to be white in this position. I'm not saying Black's bad at all, but I just kind of like white better. You've got this option here to pin the knight, and then from there to bring the knight here. Threaten checkmate. That can't take because the rook will defeat the king, so the queen. So there's a lot of stuff going on here that Black might have to deal with. So the bishop comes out, and knight comes in here. So this knight move, it blocks the bishop from shooting here. And it just kind of muddles the center, and white can exchange if he wants, but not bad at all. Now we're going to move this king here, defending this pawn. It's not an immediate threat, obviously, but I don't remember how I did it. But she's thinking down the road that this is going to be a weak square since it's undefended, and it's so important because it's our king in the midst. It's not just a minor piece. So she wants to make sure later on she's defended if anything happens, if this knight gets traded off or something like that. Because if the queen were to come up here and end up taking this, and the king's here, that's going to be big trouble. She could come here, or there's a lot of different ways that she could wreck his game. He could wreck her game. So Black moves the rook to c8, and this is eyeing down the spot here, especially if the knight comes somewhere and attacking this square. It's going to be so it's an X-ray attack. Rook couldn't take right away, but it's definitely something to be looking forward to in the future. She goes ahead and pushes pawns on the king side, pushing toward the kings because she doesn't need these for defense. So go ahead and do a pawn storm and get it going. No reason not to. Goes ahead and exchanges the knight for the bishop. Interesting move with the rook coming up here. The idea behind it being that we could take with the pawn and push the knight out of the way, but we're good with the knight being there. He's not doing much there. So and then this also allows us to bring our rook over and start attacking the king. An easy way to slide over. He could slide back and forth. He's got a full open horizontal file. Whereas here, he didn't really have a lot going on. So this is not a bad place for a rook at all. But Black kind of ruined that here with the fork that he's doing. Forking our rook and forking the pawn here. And it's gonna be dangerous if we allow Black to take this pawn here. Okay, so yeah, this kind of ruins that whole plan by forking the rook and the pawn. So from here, we need to protect both of these because obviously we don't want an exchange there, and this is going to be a nightmare if one of these come in. So the only logical move is the rook coming in and attacking or protecting this pawn. So queen comes over, and this is just a subtle move, bringing the queen out against our king, against Beth's king, and the knight is still attacking both sides here. The queen here would have been good too, attacking here, but we would have just defended. So Griev goes ahead and just loads up all his ammo against her right here on the queen's side. So go ahead and pushing the pawn forward still. Pawn storming the king. This pawn will be sure to follow, and other weapons against the enemy king. Rook comes up and planning for the other rook to come and double up on the c file, just throwing everything at this pawn right here, which is seemingly a little weak. So good ways to defend against this. This move right here would do it, but once again weakening the king on this diagonal, which is never what you want to do voluntarily. So she goes ahead and does this, and he can still bring this over, but we're going to take the knight. So attacking the knight, he's going to have to move. Now moving this knight back here blocks a double up of rooks here, so kind of hurts himself. And then bringing this pawn up and attacking the king still. And then this is a pretty good move here. The rook coming here, so he's attacking this pawn, and we would not be able to take back because of the queen pinning the pawn to the king. So something has to be done about this pawn here, this whole situation. So the rook comes up and defends against this pawn. And if you look, this still isn't great because we've got this bishop here and this rook that haven't been developed at all. We're behind in development. I mean, the bishop still has a good diagonal here, but it's inhibiting the rook, and the bishop would just be better here or here. So the rook comes in, attacking this pawn once again with the doubling up, and we have to bring our queen back and protect this on b2. Not ideal because we want the queen to be able to attack and be able to maneuver, and she can't right now. She has to protect. So rook comes over and just throwing everything he has at Beth, and she's just having trouble. So the bishop comes up finally, getting the rook able to get into the game, and just getting him into the game as well. Bishop comes back, protecting here, and opening up this file if the rook wants to come in. So go ahead and bring this rook here, which is taking the open file, the semi-open file on the f file, and attacking here, somewhat attacking here, at least getting into the game. Bishop, or the pawn, comes up looking to fianchetto this rook, or this bishop, and then when the bishop comes here, it will be eyeing down on the b2 square, which will be very dangerous for white to combat. Because then he'll have 1, 2, 3 things aiming at this. He's going to have 1 thing and possibly 2 things aiming at this. There's a lot of threats here coming in. So rook comes over and attacks this rook. He could trade, and then it's not bad, but he definitely needs to get one of these rooks off the board. And the rook is going to have to probably take because he's also being attacked here. If he moves, rook's going to take the queen. So white's not really giving him a choice. Beth didn't really give him a choice. She's saying, hey, you're going to exchange rooks with me or you're screwed. So he goes ahead and does it. And this is an interesting position because the white queen is open with the rooks coming down to fight. She had to make sure that once this knight's moved, she can still get her queen out on time. So he doesn't go ahead and do that. He just brings his rook up, and she goes ahead and gets the queen out of the enemy fire of the rook once the knight's moved, which is another defensive move that just needed to be done. This king can step up here in this pocket too on a2, and he's going to be protecting all 3 of these pawns, and that's a semi-safe place for the king still. So not bad at all. This is, as we knew, was going to happen. The bishop coming up, fianchettoing on the king side and attacking this b pawn. However, if you notice now, there's nothing else attacking this b pawn. So this pawn, for the moment, is safe because of this pawn here. Now the king's going to need to step up so that he can protect this pawn and the queen can move, or something's going to be needed to be done so that we can protect this pawn. besides the queen. So this does that. This protects the queen, the pawn on b3, and allows us to, if you notice, we're also kind of attacking this pawn here with the rook and the bishop once the knight moves. He's got a rook protecting it now, but he's going to have to be careful because this is a kind of a sneaky move. So the knight comes out. Knight's going to be starting to attack a little bit, also attacking this pawn here, and we're going to go ahead and exchange. And she does not want to exchange the queens. Personal preference sometimes. We got two things attacking this bishop here. This is mate threat here. So she goes ahead and deals with it by protecting here and not exchanging queens because she wants to keep the queens on the board. For whatever reason, maybe it's just what she's thinking at the time. It's even in material. I don't see a problem with exchanging queens. It might lead to more of a draw position. But soon as Beth Harmon, she wants to win. So possibly she was thinking at the time she wants to keep the queens on the board so that she has a better chance of winning instead of drawing. So she does that. Rook's coming up here. We got two pieces attacking this pawn, the queen and the rook. Goes ahead and brings this rook up here. So this is going to be, the rook still can't take this because then we're going to go here. And he's kind of protecting this place as well so the queen can get free and run. So he goes in and takes, and then she takes, giving check to the king. He moves, and then we move our queen off of the e file with the rooks attacking us. And there's a lot of, this is a mate threat here. So he's got to do something. He comes in and attacks, moves, and then leaving us a choice here if we want to exchange queens again. She doesn't, so goes ahead and brings this pawn up, attacking the queen. And black did want to exchange queens, so goes ahead and does that. We still got a mate threat going on here at the moment. Black has to deal with that immediately. Yeah, so that deals with it because now the king has a place to run to here. Very subtle way of dealing with this mate threat because there wasn't a lot of. The rook could have come up. No, there's no other good way. This could have come up and been taken. So very subtle, very good move. Bishop's coming back, and this is kind of a dance at this point. Just different things going on, and at this point ended up being a draw in the real game. This is the real game, but we don't care about the real game. This is Beth Harmon's game, right? So Beth Harmon's game, she actually plays h5 instead, and because she doesn't want to draw, she wants to win, obviously. So after he comes here, both of them attacking this piece here, she goes ahead and moves that forward, allowing the check. And after that takes, looking very dangerous here. That's a mate threat with our white rook. So he really needs to come here to protect against that mate threat. There's no other great way to protect against that. Very subtle mate this would be here because the bishop attacking on g8. So he goes there, and she goes ahead and takes this pawn on b7, just eating up more material, allowing for another queen to be made. And the bishop's moving around, not a whole lot to do with it. It's just protecting this pawn right now. We're coming up here, and black's going to try to make some moves. It's not working. This is a skewer, so she's going to probably move this here just to protect that pawn. And you can see that black's trying different things out, but not really making any headway. This is going to be a good game for white at this point. She made an improvement on the original game, which was a draw, and she ends up making her win. So you can see at this point that black's just making moves, and white's Beth is actually doing some good here. She's got a outpost here for the rook. King is never going to be able to get on the 7th rank, and she is just pushing slowly and like an anaconda, just ripping apart black's position and making sure that she gets to push that pawn to queen. see she's just very subtly, a little piece at a time. And there's the queen. And then from here, the game's just over. She knows Black could not combat against that, and he definitely can't combat against a queen for a rook and a pawn. So from this point, the game's just over. He might as well just resign. And I think he does resign before checkmate, if I remember correctly. Yeah, this right here, this is just game. So that's the game against Griev. It's a fantastic game, and I love to watch it. I love watching her come in and do it. The what do they call it? The improvisation, the intuitive chess, where she goes and walks away and comes back. It's fantastic. Fantastic eye into the mind of Beth Harmon. So great game, episode 4. Episode 4 has a lot to unpack for us, I know. So let's go on to the 5th and final game she plays against Borgov, which is going to be even crazier, and it's fantastic. All right, let's get started. Alrighty, and we've come to it, the final game of episode 4, where Beth Harmon plays Borgov, the Russian. They call him supposedly the best in the world, and he's the reigning champ. And she's about to find out why, because if you've seen the episode, you know that Beth ends up losing this game, and it's pretty tragic for her. So her first major loss. So let's look at how it begins. Beth is playing the black pieces, and once again, this goes off of a similar game played back a long time ago. I don't know what year, by Leonid Steen as Borgov and Alexander Matinovic. That's who they gave Beth Harmon the pieces for. So let's go ahead and start it up. It goes into Sicilian, which we see all the time in this show, mainly because Sicilian is just one of the most solid repertoires for Black. After E4, Sicilian is deemed the best opening for Black. Alright, so we go into it. It's a close Sicilian, and then we're going into a dragon. And queen comes up. This is a bit of an odd move, attacking the bishop, and not much else. The queen is very limited here, but overall it's not detrimental or anything. Pawn comes up, protects the bishop since he's castling kingside. He does not care about pawn coming up. Brings out the whole point of this move, the fianchetto. And here we go, attacking the white bishop and trading off for the knight. Very interesting, because white usually likes to hold on to this light squared bishop because it's its most powerful bishop, being that the king is normally on the white squares. But in this position, he could retreat a little bit and then maybe deal with some more attacks. But he decided just to go ahead and exchange for the knight. And nothing wrong with it. It's just a bit odd. So she decides to take back with the queen, because to take either way with the pawns would end up doubling the pawns. And as a rule, you don't want to double the pawns if you don't have to, unless there's a good reason for it. And there would be no good reason for this in the beginning. So she takes with the queen. So pawn coming up, challenging the center, a very normal thing. So we take, and then he would be, she goes ahead and takes, then we would have an open file, and he would have a strong center. This might have actually been better for her, because after this, we've got a semi-open file. We've got good modes of a light squared diagonal here. We've got this attacking this piece right here. We could bring this up eventually, maybe not right away. But nothing wrong with what she did. She decided not to take in the center, and instead just bring this up here, which is a common thing with the Sicilian, obviously bringing out your light squared bishop. So she's opening that avenue, just letting that road open up there. And the same thing, if he takes, she'll take, and it'll give queen this open file, but only for a short time after we get our bishop out and move the rook there. So rook comes over, supporting the e file, And we get our bishop out, which is one of the whole reasons for doing this d6 move. And we're pinning the knight to the queen, which could be useful later on. So white's grabbing more space, hoping to be the one with the most space here. And so white has a good amount of space here, and black less so. So that move really limited white even more. If you look here, I'm sorry, limited black even more. So black is kind of confined here by his pawns, and white is just grabbing more space. Now, a lot of times you want to grab more space if you can. You don't want to overextend, but in this case, this was a good move. It's attacking the queen, and it's giving white more space to run and move his pieces. So black queen moves back because of the attack. This is also eyeing down this h2 for later. And the pawn moves up. So it's not a lot to it, restricting this. And then if this pawn ever wants to move forward, it can be attacked here. And that's the whole point of that. So the knight comes out, getting ready to castle. Not really attacking this because of the rook. However, white is going to go ahead and protect with the knight as it's developing. Kind of a twofer there. Developing and protecting against a threat. We castle, and then white is going to kick away this bishop. Now the bishop doesn't have great options. If it goes here, then white's just going to trap it, and that's a terrible move. So if he comes back here, he's pretty limited. He could come here, but after this move here, he's got nothing. So this would be pretty much just trapping the white bishop, and she realized that, so she goes ahead and trades it for the knight. So not necessarily ideal trading the bishop for the knight, but in this instance, with these pawns protecting everything, wasn't much else she could do. Down the road, she would have been trapped. So the knight comes back, opening up this diagonal, and it also might want to come here, protecting here, but might want to come here in the future. It'll be a good spot for the knight. Pawns coming out, developing, and pushing the pawn forward. Now, pushing the pawn forward is trying to grab a little more space, hopefully maybe trading off and attacking on the queen's side, maybe after this rook comes here. But if white doesn't want to let him, he doesn't have to because of en passant. So he didn't. He went ahead and took that en passant. If you don't know what en passant is, check out my video on en passant. It's very detailed, and everybody should really know this move. So check that out. And then so he took en passant and then took back with the queen. Could have taken back with the knight as well, but the knight is sitting pretty good here after it comes here. Protecting against this pawn move as well, so definitely don't want to move that knight out of the way if we don't have to. This queen is also on a direct diagonal to the king. Not a bad idea, especially if we move that up. Can have some attacking opportunities there later. So move the rook up, protecting this pawn that the queen is attacking, and then she goes ahead and moves that up. So this we could come here. We could start attacking different places. This is a bit of a weird move. Just moving up one. She could come here and start an attack of some sorts on different pieces. But I feel like this was a waste of time. I feel like this didn't have much of a purpose. So the knight comes up, plan to come in here and possibly move around and get into a better position. Rook's coming over, attacking this, kinda sorta. I mean, we're not going to take with our bishop. I'm sorry, with our queen. However, the bishop is on this diagonal, so could prove useful if this pawn tries to move forward. Bishop's come down, attacking this open pawn, and the king protects. So we don't want to necessarily do this because that's going to weaken our king side, and it blocks our dark squared bishop. We don't want to protect with the bishop because after that, then there goes one of our main protectors. And blocking with the knight is also blocking our bishop, and it seems like this could just be have to be sitting here for a while to protect, and that's not something we want either. So the king move is a really good move because you could just simply protect this without having to worry about sacrificing or anything like that, making anything too crazy. Queen comes over, putting some pressure on this knight and looking to get into the attack against the king. And it proves to be part of Beth's downfall that she doesn't adequately deal with this. The pawn comes up, attacking, kicking away the bishop. He runs back. This did weaken the king's side a little bit, but it's a good idea to get the pawn away. The king still looks rather safe in this instance, since he's behind all these pawns. May or may not prove to be the case. Knight comes up and attacking the queen, trying to push him away. This is a good outpost for him, like we had talked earlier. This is where the knight really wanted to be the whole game, but the enemy white knight was right here, so he couldn't. So the knight in this position is going to be really helpful for her. And so the queen backs up, looking to get an attack here, attack here, and so he goes ahead and moves the pawn here, attacking the queen again. What might have been a decent move is this knight move right here, attacking this rook. And after the rook moves, we've got at least a nice threat here, and as well here. So that might have been a bit of a better move. I haven't gone through it all the way with the engine, but I think that looks pretty good. But the pawn comes up and attacks the queen, and she comes down, stepping into it and attacking this pawn right here, which looks a little weak. The knight is protecting it, but for how long, right? So he moves up here, which is, I still think here is a better place for the knight. Attacking here, looking to maneuver in different places. The knight goes here, attacking this other knight, which after the trade, the queen would be attacking here. That wouldn't be too bad for black, but he doesn't trade. Instead, he keeps this attack on the king's side, trying to open up some things here and throwing pawns at him, which his king is completely safe right now. No reason not to do this. This is a great move. Subtle move. So black goes ahead and exchanges the knight. Why would he do this? It's not a great... Why would Beth do this? Not a great move. This white knight isn't doing much right now. It's not protecting anything. It's protecting this pawn. It's not attacking anything. So, but her knight is doing really well. He's out in enemy territory. So when you've got a good knight, you don't want to trade it off for a passive knight that's not really doing anything. So she's taking one of her good pieces and trading it for one of his okay pieces. And as a rule, you don't really want to do that unless you have a plan. So she goes ahead and trades the knight. And then the queen comes up, attacking the rook. And then, does that. It could have also come here, attacking the queen back, but, it doesn't really matter. And she steps in, attacking the bishop. And this piece here. So she could have even just taken this here. And he couldn't go there because of that. And I suppose he could have gone here, but, two rooks for a queen ain't that bad. And then after check, this could have been interesting. Could have been very interesting. I mean, I'm not saying she would have won, but it might have been a little bit more interesting of a game. We're actually seeing a pretty interesting rollover right here. But that's not how it went. She instead moves right there, attacking both these pieces. And after that, goes ahead and takes this open piece here. Not open because queen can take back, but this piece that was sitting there. And the bishop comes in. Fantastic move. Taking the pawn, attacking the bishop, pinning it to the king, and almost guaranteeing that black has to take the back of this. She doesn't. So goes ahead and takes this pawn here, attacking here, hoping to get some counterplay. It's too slow. So with this rook move here, she's hoping that she can come over here, get a check in, and maybe maneuver around, maybe with the pawn, and grab a checkmate. But it's too slow because white has already launched the attack. So from here, it's check, and Beth can't go ahead and do this because Borgov is already starting his attack. So after it takes, queen check again, and has to run, and then she goes ahead and takes this piece, which is very important for this kingside attack for black, and she's protecting this attack from the enemy queen. So so Borgov in a couple moves just thwarted the whole attack. Now these pieces are too far to protect the king. They're not doing any attacking, and it's just a nightmare for Beth Harmon. So king comes over, and there. So what also could have happened is this move right here, queen coming down to h8, and then after the king moves, goes ahead and takes this piece. But then, you know, I guess then that would have taken there, and then yeah, that would have been checkmate. So that does not work. So pawn comes down, attacking, trying to open up more of this, and it does. He succeeds, and he's doing a pretty good mate threat on Beth right here on e7. So she's got to combat this at the same time, trying to come up with some counterplay. There, right there, she takes a check. That throws a check in, and the king moves. Now this thing is hanging, but she can't take it because of this mate threat here. This has to be taken care of. So the pawn comes up, and that's pretty much one of the only ways to handle that. Pawn comes back down, still again threatening a mate continuation here, and threatening even more to do something like this. So king comes up, blocking the pawn, but this is just is not enough. So rook comes down, attacking the queen or the king. He can't really take here because the queen's gonna come over, and it's just gonna be a nightmare. This is going to be a nightmare. So king moves up, and then he goes ahead and takes and trades. And from here, he's got a discover check coming, a queen incoming. And so black tries to do what she can to hold on to all this, but it just doesn't work. Check there, and then Beth resigns here. Has to resign because after a pawn here, threatening to queen, there's this that forks the queen and the king. There's two other pawns that are passed that are gonna come get queened, and this is just a nightmare for Beth. She can't combat all this played perfectly, which Borgov does play perfectly. So at this point, this is time for her to resign. So that finishes out episode 4 for us. Let me know what you think. What was your favorite game? Honestly, mine I think was game number 4 here, Georgia Griev. But these were all great games. That's why it took me 3 episodes to do them all. But great show. Go check it out. And let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, and thank you for watching. See you next time.